Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Newton Classroom Podcast. Stay tuned.
So I have Lina Ashar with us today. She's the founder of Dreamtime Learning, founder emeritus, Billabong and Kangaroo Kids. Thank you so much for joining today on the podcast.
Thank you, Sanjay. I'm very happy to be here. And yes, now I think I'm a serial entrepreneur. So sold Kangaroo Kids, Billabong and my new startup is Dreamtime Learning.
It's amazing the kind of work that you've done, and I've known that you've moved back to India to incorporate a different school of thought into the education system. I'm sure that would have been a little challenging. I wouldn't say little, it would have been challenging, what I'm assuming, but I'd like to know that story from your side.
Of course, changing anything is challenging, but especially changing anything for parents and children is especially challenging because there's just so much of fear around it, right? That what if this experiment does not work? So when Kangaroo Kids started, it started with only 10 kids. Okay. And it then grew into 187 schools before I sold it in 2017. Dreamtime Learning started with, I think, 15 online kids. Right? So when you start anything new, there's always a lot of resistance. There are very few early movers who actually think futuristically to say, oh, yes, maybe we should be looking at something different and something new. But it's how brands get built. Brands that are trying to change things have a slightly more challenging time building the brand because the narrative has to be woven so well that parents actually see on the other side what's going on. Right. So if it was Kangaroo Kids and parents would walk in and say, will you get my kid ready for exams into this school? You'd have to show them why not. You'd have to show them why not through storytelling to show them that if I am working on the windows of opportunity that are open for brain development, then it means this. And I'll tell you, and then I'd give them examples that, if you shut the eye of a child, which one would you shut, the strong or the weak? And then they'd say the strong eye. And I'd say, yeah, why would you cover the strong eye? Because that will force the neural pathways of the weak eye to get stronger. So through that, I'd get them to kind of a little bit understand how the brain works. And that sort of getting the brain to be a parrot and to regurgitate facts is actually an absolute waste of developmental time for kids. So there's a lot of narrative storytelling through using examples that make sense to parents that they can then visualize and see and understand what you're talking about from theory to kind of, or from abstract to kind of concrete.
It's very interesting, and this requires a lot of responsibility on your end and a lot of a lot of effort from your side to change something, and also to introduce something new also requires a lot of research into what is going on right now and how it has to be done. Like you said, it started with 10 kids and 15 kids, Dreamtime Learning now. So tenacity, I see that already. So that's amazing that you've done. And talking about the evolving thought process and how to shape the thought process. So right now when we're talking about education and learning, so is education and learning same?
Is education and learning the same? I mean, if you're asking kids to separate words, they probably come in the same box. Education is just a much wider scope, and within it comes learning, right? But learning can happen outside of education. But education necessarily has to have learning as a tag. So it's one of those questions that you'd love to give kids handouts to and say, okay, now come back, research this, do a lot of a lot of discussion, and come back with an answer. So they go in the same box, but I think you can have a lot of learning without education. and education tends to be thought of as in schools and colleges and universities and more structured forms of learning. But learning's happening all the time. My subconscious is taking in thousands of bits of information right now. My conscious brain may be only processing a little bit. And I don't know when this interaction that you and I are having will pop up through my subconscious at another point in time when I'm doing another podcast, or I'm just an idea from something you asked me, tenacity. What can I do with that? It'll come up at some point. It'll just go. So the brain is constantly learning without the structure or with the structure in place.
So true. And also talking about the mindset of the students of that we are developing in the institutions right now. Education also has to cover that aspect of it rather than just making them career ready, or when not talking about just the numbers, right? So talking about the mindset development for the future of the students. So for that, to do that, there's again a lot of scenarios that we are in right now, considering the technology, considering the reducing attention spans that we have right now. I think it's down to a few seconds now. So how do we navigate this?
We navigate it together. So you always have to come from the world that the kids are in, right? It's no use saying, "Oh my God, technology is here, and now what do we do with it?" I talk about once upon a time, people used to be scared of print. When that was the new form of technology, that it's going to rob our kids of their memories, right? That didn't happen. And, the fear always plays a lot louder in the world and in our heads and grabs headlines and everything else more than anything else does. So you navigate it from the world that the kids are coming in. So if you can look at why they get addicted to video games, or what are the apps and the digital games and the digital world and the marketing world doing to grab our kids' attentions? And can we use that in what we're doing, right? So I don't necessarily say to kids, don't use social media. But what I do say to them is, if social media existed when Gandhiji was alive, what would the Salt March campaign strategy have been? Right?
Interesting question. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then they go off to create that, and then now they're in flow, and they're creating, and they're having to research what happened during that historic period in time, and then incorporate it into the language that they use, the graphics that they use, and everything. So you create this integrated form of learning that's like what kids are engaging with in the real world. And then if you can bring that in, so you bring all those elements to make whatever you're doing in the classroom or outside the classroom highly relatable, highly engaging, and you use all those neuroscience, the new term we're using is neuroeducation principles, to develop what the kids will do. Then you've got an edge, and then you are not battling. I tell my, what we traditionally call instructional designers, I say, you're not instructional designers, you're actually curiosity and excitement architects, because all your job is to arouse curiosity, so touch that center of the brain, again, a neuroscience understanding, that if there's something that touches a deep emotional chord, so you know where you are when you had your first kiss, where you are when, Indira Gandhi or Princess Diana was when they died, or any of these monumental things that have this emotional surge, that you remember forever. That point in time is frozen because it's hit the emotional center, right? It's hit, so shock or deep levels of curiosity will work. So if you're teaching angles and you start with Angry Birds, it's relatable. It's then you've got a hook. You've got a hook into the kids' world, and into the kids' brain. And now the kids are curious to understand what are the principles of physics that were used to create Angry Bird. And hey, now we're going to just learn about it. But now my brain's engaged, because now my brain's deeply curious about this thing that just happened. So we use that the principles of neuroscience and principles of engagement in every session that we create. So you hook the kid, shock, curiosity, or love, any deep emotion. Then you go into your session, which the hook is based on, because it answers that. And then kids go off to create something based on what they've learned. Because this is the creator economy. Your podcast as well, right? You've got another source of revenue. So there's a really reason why you guys our kids are podcasting and doing all these things, because of the creator economy and you want attention. That's our new currency, right? Yes. So in that world, we have to step into the world of the kids and say, okay, it is the creator economy, and the kids know it. And if you are hypocritical and say, I just rejected one of my curiosity and excitement architect's plans because she's talking about water and our water footprint, and then she's asking the kids to make a poster about saving water. And I said, do you know how hypocritical that is? Why don't you? Because it's not like kids' brains are not, hey, she's asking me to use paper uses trees use water, and then kids are not hypocritical, right? Kids are pure, they're just out there. So then the kid's brain's not going to engage with that. So I said, please remove that. You can include that in the plan, that this is the conventional way we've learned how to save the water posters, but how can you now communicate this message without using paper? And give the kids that problem to solve. Right. So it's all in coming into the world the kids are in. If they're using social media, anything you stop, anything you force, will have resistance. Right. Nobody likes to be controlled, including a child. Right. But if you tell the kids, and the kids actually want to survive, right? Thrive. It's not like their brains have understood, because this technology is coming so fast. It's not as though 10 years from now, when you understand that needless scrolling is going to create anxiety in your brain. Needless video gaming is going to create dopamine spurts that then you'll feel a low of, because like the mind is a seesaw, and once your dopamine hit this way, to self-regulate, the brain goes that way, right? And that creates that depression. And so it's not like when you don't understand that, you don't want to survive and thrive in the world, and you say, do I really want to be depressed? Do I really want anxiety in my brain? And then, you won't do it. It's just that we're just saying kids don't use it. We're not telling kids the whys of the good use, the wise use, and the whys of the use that's going to have them feeling stuck or have them feeling not so good, or it's going to cause anxiety and depression. If kids know that, if we actually educate kids for the world that they're walking into, then I think most of them will make smart choices. I mean, there's a reason why, when we've got this plethora of Netflix opened up, and I could watch, I sold my first company, right? I had the freedom to watch Netflix 24/7, and it used to be a thing, right? So I'd work from Monday to Friday, Saturday was my learning day, half day Sunday was my learning day, and then at 4:00 in the evening, my guy knew he's going to make me popcorn and come down, and I'm going to be watching Netflix from 4:00 to night. And there was high engagement in that. When I sold my company, and I was allowed to not watch Netflix day in, day out, eat popcorn day in, day out, did I enjoy it? No, because too much of a good thing is not a good thing. And even like our attention spans are coming down because we've got all of this distraction coming at us. But the minute we start getting kids to understand it, our attention levels, spans will go back up again.
It's very well put, actually. And talking about emotions, you've also touched upon crucial points like feeling depressed. Like, it has grown. The number of students that feel depressed, it has grown over the time. And also talks about being mindful is something that we, as definitely educators, have to impart to the students at this age itself, so that they are aware of what is happening and the situation and everything. So how can the schools do that?
So perhaps the schools alone cannot do that. One thing we have to realize, we're sitting in Goa. And just day before yesterday, I read an article where 30 lakh hectares are going to be gobbled up by a big construction infrastructure company. And you look at that and your heart sinks, right? It's like when the minute I land from, say, Australia into Bombay, my senses are assaulted. My sense of smell, my vision, like I'm distracted everywhere by every single sense that I have because there's an assault on my senses. I then come from Bombay to Goa, and I get in the car, and my whole central nervous system balances. I instantly start feeling calm. You see the green. There's some, so in nature, that's what happens, right? Yeah. That's the sound of the water helps our central nervous system regulate. When we hear birds, our amygdala, our fear center goes down because we know there's safety around the corner. So nature is the way. So schools don't have much nature, unfortunately. One thing they could possibly do is put more trees inside the school or plants inside the classroom. But while technology is being blamed majorly for the anxiety, one of the largest reasons for anxiety is the taking away of nature. The second biggest is taking away of unstructured playtime, where kids are in control of their play. The minute, are you married? Okay, so the day you get married, if your wife tries to control your movements and your thinking and your actions from morning to night, you'll have very high levels of anxiety. And that's what we do, right? You will go to school now, and then you will study, and then the teacher will tell you what to do, and then you'll come home, and then I as a parent will tell you, now you have to do your homework, now you have to go to tuitions, now you have to go to swimming, and now you have to do this, and now you have to do that, and you have to do this, and you have to do that, and now you have to time to sleep, and now you cannot use your... So any sense I have as a human being of being an agent of my outcome, having some form of autonomy, having independent decision making, is completely gone. I may as well be in prison, right? I can't go down and just play with kids, because that play too has to be structured in a way that's good for me, that is teaching me something. Nobody understands the value of unstructured play. Right. And these are it's a cumulative thing that's taking away from our children and causing high levels of depression and anxiety. Till today, if you read research papers, there's not one research paper that has conclusive evidence that it's technology that's doing this to our kids. Yes, if you're endlessly scrolling and you're comparing yourself to a very popular kid in class who's got a lot of likes and you don't, that's going to cause anxiety. Right? But we're constantly... Education, parents were validating kids with an external sense of self all the time. Until we can shift that monumentally as a society, as parents, as educators, for me to say to you, oh, you got D- on your math paper? That's okay. How did it make you feel? What do you want to do differently next time? Right. And for it just to be a process, and for me not to withdraw my love or my acceptance of you as a child, because that's what's happened, then we're going to go somewhere.
It's a beautiful illustration. It just made me think a lot of times that I had my conversations with my dad. So it just made me nostalgic. And things were not dealt like that, coming from the traditional Indian...
Parents are scared, right? Yes. Parents are scared. I mean, you've got companies who are saying, you take our product and your kid will compete and in this and win and win and win. That's the message that we're constantly giving to parents. Now, what message are they going to take away? And then we're constantly looking for validation from our parents, from our teachers, from our report card, then from our places of work. When appraisals come around, it's not that we're so anxious because we didn't get that increase in our salary package so much. The anxiety comes from, I'm not good enough. I was not good enough to be promoted. I was not good enough for that additional money. We validate ourselves with all these external senses of grades, marks, awards, accolades, our salary package, all of that.
So when it also talks about the definition of success that we have traditionally. So, and in today's world, success is equal to happiness, is what we see, that you feel happy when you're successful, when you have reached a certain point that you've always wanted to reach.
Ask people who've reached there if they're happy, or if they feel like completely anxious and stressed out. Yes, we've developed these notions because they're good for the commercial world we live in, right? That it's profit, and it's what my talk is about today. It's like we have, we were teaching kids from a very young age that it's profit and it's power at any cost. Yeah. So till we can shift that, but we should actually interview people who are really successful and ask them how they sleep at night. And till we can ask kids to come up with their own definition of what a successful life feels like to them, right? And I always tell parents, we feel that the pursuit of happiness, but actually it's usually the pursuit of meaning. When do we really feel validated, self-validated, is when we're making a difference. When we feel, because of my existence today, your world became a little kinder, or your world became like a little bit more inspired, or I was able to alleviate some problem that you have. When that happens, a two-way exchange between humanity, a deep sense of connection, is when true meaning, fulfillment occurs. Now, maybe that's my sense of it, right? So I was talking to my younger brother, who is into all those external forms of success, the house in Hamilton Island, the Maserati, the this, the that, and we're actually partners in everything we do. And he always wants to impose those, I want to buy you a Mercedes-Benz, I want to buy you this. I said, not part of it's not part of anything I have in my goals. And he said, but you have to understand that's how the world works. And if you look at the animal world, it's survival of the fittest. The lion will kill the deer unless the deer can run. I said, but understand the difference. The lion kills the deer and eats the deer. He doesn't kill the next deer till he's hungry again. It's not like he's killing deer after deer and hoarding them in his cupboard and saying, see how many deers I have. Wow. I'm really happy. So it was really funny that mankind's only the only primate that's stupid enough to hoard all their bananas instead of sharing them, just because they can. Right. Bananas go bad.
That's a beautiful illustration. Beautiful illustration. Very well explained.
See, I've had to learn to do this, because otherwise, how do I have parents understand the power of what I'm trying to do?
Beautiful, beautifully done. So one last thing before we end the podcast today. So I was going through everything that you've done. One thing that caught my attention was that you've written Happiness Advocate. So I would want you to talk a little bit about that. Where does that come from, and why is it there on LinkedIn?
So happiness comes from finding meaning, firstly. So I'm in that sense, I'm more wanting kids to find their deep questions, their why, their sense of purpose. I've interviewed, you said must have done a lot of research. I did about 100 interviews, including one with Hector Garcia, the author of Ikigai. Yes. And as I was talking to him, I said, I just suddenly realized my Ikigai is to help others find their Ikigai. Because it's true. If you can, let's not take away from the cruel facts of the world that I have to have 20 rupees to buy a cup of chai. And if I want to buy it at Starbucks, I probably have to have 400 rupees. But that I do need that sense of currency to be able to feed myself. But if I can have that currency doing something that drives me every day. Nobody has to wake me up in the morning. Nobody has to tell me to get to work. It feels like play when I'm doing it. And when people ask me, but you sold and you have so much money, why are you doing this all over again? Because if I'm not creating, I'm not in a sense of flow. If I'm not in a sense of flow, I haven't got my meaning, I am not happy. So, wouldn't it be great if we have a world in which, we actually advocate for everyone's happiness? Because there is enough in the world. It's just there are a few people wanting to grab a lot of it.
Profound things that you've shared today. I mean, everything that you've mentioned just made me think, made me go back, question, bring it back. Thank you so much for sharing your views, and it's lovely talking to you. Thank you for your time, ma'am.
I think I was born into education field. See, first of all, technology is right now at the very initial stages when we talk about school education. So many AI tools, you can make your lessons very interesting. I have to give it to parents of new age because they are more informed than our parents when we were students. This is not the scenario now, and this is not what is expected from a school. They have buffet of options in front of them. You need to have peace of mind. How to achieve that?